what the hell? We'll just get into it. We'll just start we're recording it. So why the fuck don't we do the whole thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the Scumdance interview with Annihilator director. Well, why don't you introduce yourself? Who are you and what did you
Uh,
do in this movie?
I am Kyle Mangione Smith. I am the writer and director of Annihilator. Yeah.
Great. I want to say that there were a few films this year that I had an immediate like, oh, holy shit reaction. There's a film called Red Tiles. There's one called Pencil Dick. But your film was just, I think, um, it hits hard and it's brutal and beautiful at the same time. Um, I I think this film and Red Tiles I had the most visceral reaction to all the submissions this year, and very excited to have your film in our festival. Um, Without giving too much away, what was the inspiration or impetus that led to the creation of this film?
Well, I think kind of just based on like what you're talking about, I did very explicitly want to make something that was just really, really intense and fast. And I wanted to create something where even if you hate it, like it's kind of hard to have like a like neutral reaction to it. Um, and I mean that was because like a few things. Part of it was like the last big short film I made comparatively is like very methodical, very atmospheric. It's kind of like a slow burn that builds up. And I sort of just wanted to do like the opposite of that. It was also just like in my personal life, just like a lot of the shit that I was going through and feeling at the time. I was having just a lot of like, kind of ugly, rough emotions. And so I wanted to channel that into something. I don't know if you know uh Dennis Cooper, the writer.
Oh yeah.
Um, but he's like a massive inspiration for me. And like I've always I mean this isn't really like exactly like an adaptation of his work, but
Right.
it very obviously has a lot of the same themes, the same atmosphere if you know his work. Um, and so I guess I kind of just took those two things and I was like, what if I channel like how I'm feeling right now and what the direction I want to push my work into that framework. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the impetus for it.
Um, I want to ask a few technical questions because the film looks terrific. You have some visual effects happening here, unless you actually had like an on-set arsonist, I guess. Um, how did you shoot this? What did you use? What were your techniques? I mean, there's even the shot of your lead driving. It's just fucking gorgeous. This film just looks incredible. So maybe talk about that, like the cinematography and the effects side of.
Um, sure, yeah. I mean, it was tough and like I mean, anyone that like helped me make this will attest to the fact that like basically the entire pre-production and production process, I was very unsure that like a lot of the bigger things in it were gonna work. Like, I mean, the fire driving shot, I guess to get down to exactly what you're asking, basically what we did there, it's mostly like it's 80% rear projection. Um, so I just like scoured the internet and found like reasonably steady
Uh-huh.
dash cam videos of someone like driving through a forest fire. And the like warehouse space that the final scene is shot in. Basically what we did, we were in that space 2 days, and the first day we put up that the screen and did all the driving shots while the set from that final scene was being constructed. And then the second day we did basically like the last 5 minutes. But I mean, I had never done rear projection before, so I really didn't know how it was going to work. And then like on top of it being rear projection, it's through like a fucking forest fire.
Yeah.
So I truly did not know if it was going to look just like really stupid up until the point that like it was fully set up and like we had the camera in place, and it was like, oh, this actually works.
That's great.
But yeah, there's that. And then a like really close friend of my producer is a VFX artist who like just so happened to like be finishing up work on a feature that was centered around firefighters.
Oh,
So he just had like a ton
Jesus.
of like fire assets basically ready to go. So basically he like came in and just like spruced it up and like really like sold it, you know, with like the embers flying
Yeah.
overhead and like the fires on the ground. There's that one shot where he's running to the
Yes.
car,
Yes.
um, where like people consistently ask me if we actually just lit that tree on
Yeah.
fire.
Yeah.
We
When I
did not.
watched that, I thought like, oh fuck, what are we allowed to show this?
It's
Like it
really
was.
crazy. It's really crazy what he was able to do with that shot. Like
Huh,
it does look really like astoundingly real.
yeah.
And it's funny actually because I feel like even just that like 3 seconds right before it goes into the whole like driving sequence, like because that looks the way it does, I feel like you buy like the rear projection even more.
You create this whole world, and it feels you're watching. Like it feels maybe like rear projection, but also maybe not, and it totally works. I mean, I love it. I really
Thank you.
aesthetically love the shit out of this movie. Yeah, I mean, you know, I guess like I think the only thing that I could really, as far as like rear projection goes, that I can compare to would be like, I'm not trying to mean this in any way at all. Is I guess the first time I saw Natural Born Killers, when they really fucked with the idea of what real projection
Yeah.
would be. Um, and I only say that just because this puts you're so ill at ease from such an early point in this film that I think having that creates an even more hypnotic quality, and really adds to the beauty of the filmmaking. Um, sorry, I'll stop kissing your ass. I'll let you keep talking some more.
No, I mean that was, you know, really kind of the intent of it, because I mean on paper, um the whole like forest fire
Mhm.
bit, it's really not even like essential to the story. The point is it's kind of like it's almost like background noise. And that I mean it's not,
Yeah,
because you know it's such like an intense effect, but
yeah,
the idea for us was like this character that's going to do this thing, like he seemingly is almost not even phased by it, like it's just kind of part of his world. um and so in that sense, like it is, it's supposed to like have a really intense effect like that, but like I guess yeah, like in sort of like a hypnotic way where it just becomes like a texture of this world that this guy's in. um
you know, I have a sometimes a willful ignorance of symbolism. Actually, no, that's not true. When I read, we had to read Animal Farm in high school, and I was like, "Oh, it's a really upsetting thing about talking animals and humanity." And someone's like, "Oh yeah, but what about all the communist stuff?" Like, I don't care. You know, but looking at this, a part of me thought because you everything is just bashing you in the head from the beginning, even the title cards, and you play the fucking movie loud, and it just um, did he light those fires? Was like my first. I was like, oh, he lit the palm trees on fire in his neighborhood and is locking himself in his bedroom, and it's like, fuck, where are we? It's. I mean that there are other ways to take the film, but like this really keeps you off balance, and but it also allows interpretation.
Hmm.
Um,
I've had a fair number of people interpret it that way and ask it,
yeah.
if that was the case. That was not like what I was thinking originally, but I think like to what you were just saying, like I very intentionally like didn't really want
Mhm.
to explicitly like give you that context. The
Yeah.
like the point of it kind of just happening in the background while everything else is happening, like is like what I was saying earlier, like it's almost like the guy doesn't even really care that
Right.
everything is on fire around him.
Yeah. Fuck the
um,
world, let it burn. That whole
yeah,
thing.
and so like I was trying to put you like within that headspace by doing that. But no, I mean, to me, like the fires, it's just supposed to be like a California wildfire. For
Yeah.
me, like a big part of it was like when I made this film like about a year and a half after I moved to LA. And when I was getting ready to move was like the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
And there's just all of those photos and videos that were coming out because like the fires were really, really bad that year,
Yeah.
of like the entire state looking like it was in hell.
Yeah. I'm in San Francisco and I had to go to the doctor and I was already masked up and we had like our air purifier going and it was insane. Like the sky looked like Blade Runner or something. It was,
Yeah.
yeah,
So no, I mean, like that image just like stuck with me so strongly. Um, like when I was getting ready to move, uh, that it kind of just like came out of that, I think, like I don't know. And the other thing is like if we're gonna talk about like symbolism or
sure.
what have you, I'm someone that like I with stuff that I make, I don't really like to structure my film so that like there's like very like explicit meanings that you're
Right.
supposed to like see this as like a symbol of that. I mean, I do want there to be kind of points of connection and like some level of ambiguity, but like I'm not making it with like those answers in my own head. What makes it interesting to me is like the fact that you can leave something like this up for basically how the viewer is going to react to it.
I've looked at some of your earlier work, and I think there's one that you've made a few music videos. Actually, I think did you make a music video for Cindy Lee?
I did. It wasn't like an official.
But it
Uh,
was just yeah.
I yeah.
It's just nice to meet another Cindy Lee fan. I'm a big fan. I
Oh,
just like
yeah.
there's sort of that like just kind of fucked up bubblegum pop thing that's just so beautiful. But you do have there's some touches in some of your other films that remind me a little of David Lynch, who is someone who is notorious for not giving an answer.
Hmm.
It's just like here are the objects, here's the image, and do with it what you will. I will not answer any questions,
Yeah.
and I love that. I There's some people who say like, oh, it's because he doesn't know the answer. Is like, well, who cares? I think you put it out there and it becomes I mean, film is to some extent interactive. So I love that.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I love David Lynch. Obviously, like, you know, was definitely like a really, really massive filmmaker for me, like especially like when I was like just getting into,
right.
basically when I decided like that this is like what I wanted to do. So that influence probably does come up to an extent. But yeah, I mean, like with his work, like I don't. What's interesting to me about film is the way that you can like something like, I mean, the third season of Twin Peaks. There's so many moments in it, like scene to
Yeah,
scene, like there's it's almost pointless to even like approach that season and think about it in terms of like what does it all mean, because part
right,
of the point is it's just like how does this impact you, like what do you do with these seemingly like disparate pieces.
right.
Yeah.
And it also, yeah, we could talk for an hour about the Twin Peaks season three. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think that too many people want the answers given to them, and I'm a big fan of. I don't know that it's ambiguity, but I think it's allowing the door to be open. You know, it's like, well, what do you think? What do you want to bring to this conversation? Because again, film can be interactive, and I'll see something that's maybe something really stupid, but it could be something very precious to me, or I'll get one little thing. I was like, oh wow, that connects to something else, and um, your film is how long is this movie? It's very short.
Yeah, it's like just barely like 9 minutes.
Yeah, and it does a lot of work in that time, and there's a lot that to connect to, or to be repelled by, or whatever. I mean, I think this film is just. I'm so excited to show this to people. I'm really um
Yeah.
I love it. I love the sound of it. Actually, I want to ask you a few more questions about some of the more technical stuff. Um, so how long was the actual shoot?
It was 3 days.
Yeah,
So, like I said, we did the 2 days in like a warehouse
yeah,
downtown that I rented. Um, Funnily enough, the first day, which is the whole bit in his bedroom, is actually like in this same room.
great.
Um, and I like completely I mean, I painted the walls, like I got like new for like I
Mhm.
just completely redid it. This entire apartment was like a fucking disaster for like 3 months after.
Yeah.
Um,
Did
but
you
I
buy
mean,
like one of those like hollow core doors to like smash a hat like an axe through?
yeah, I found on Craigslist someone that was just selling a door that more or less fit in the door frame for like really cheap. And it is actually like being axed down, like that's a real axe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. The violence communicates. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was a whole process. It was tough too because like I promised my boyfriend that if he didn't like the color I painted, I would like repaint it all over again to one that he did like, which I did have to do. So yeah, it was a lot,
Well,
but I think it was worth it. So
yes, yeah, small price to pay, repainting and buying a temporary door and um let's see here. So the film is largely dialogue free. I want to talk about like the casting process because your lead is so compelling. Um, it takes a lot to be able to tell a story without the use of dialogue. So how did you cast your lead?
well, I actually did know kind of like to what you're saying from the get-go that like it needed to be casted like perfectly to really sell the story that I was trying to
Mhm.
tell. I mean, frankly, I just found the guy through Backstage, which is I'm not sure if you know, but it's basically just like an amateur acting website. It's like structured kind of like Craigslist. But I
Like
just put out like
Craigslist for actors, basically.
yeah. So I just put out like an open call, and the I knew the second I opened that guy's like first headshot, I was like, that is
Yeah.
the guy. It's really funny too, because like I always joke with like my producer that he's really like not even acting is like the best way I can put it. He kind of
Hmm.
just is that character in real life. Like
Oh.
he like he
Oh.
responded, like he read the script on Backstage and he responded like, I relate to this story very deeply and I would love to be a part of it. And just the more I interacted with him, I was like, wow, you really are kind of just like this dude. Um, which is kind of wild to think about, but he's a very, very like interesting dude. Um, but yeah,
um.
I mean, he was perfect. Like,
Oh. Invite him to our show. We'd love to have him. I can find a comp ticket for him.
yeah,
It's a fascinating performance. I mean, it's a beautiful performance. I think it's really it's when people see this film that I keep using the word beauty, but I mean, Jesus Christ, this thing is it's a gorgeous film. It's and it's really aggressive and it's really passive and it's I don't know. It's the kind of thing where when I saw this, I my first thought was like, I'm not sure I know exactly how to talk about what I feel about this film. And so thanks for that.
that's great. I mean, yeah, like I think part of like what I was going for when I was making it is like everything else that I've made up until this point, I feel like you can really obviously see like my various points of influence that I'm like building
Sure.
upon. And you can still see that with this one to an extent, I think, but like I really wanted to make something that I felt like I had like never quite seen before.
Hmm.
And that like would create like a reaction in audiences where it just like forces you to grapple with it. You know,
Hmm.
it's and I don't think it is something that's like very easy to like discreetly put into words. But you know, that is kind of the goal. I mean, not to like give too much away, but with the whole final
Sure.
sequence, like the whole the goal of the whole thing
We'll
is
just
like
we'll spoil it. A thing happens at the end of this movie. There we
yeah.
go.
um the whole goal is like the setup is so um like impossible for I think your average person to imagine like why someone
Yeah.
would want this, why someone would want to go through with it. Um and my goal was to like take that and put you in this character's head and basically make it make sense to your average audience. So with that final bit, um you know, you're seeing it and experiencing it as he is seeing and experiencing it. Um, so that was really important to me to capture.
Yeah. Um, I really don't want to give anything away. It is a hell of a thing to experience and to see. Um, well, we've whittled down my long list of questions here. But I want to ask, what's next?
Um, it's funny you ask because I'm actually very like actively in the process, like the pre-production process with probably hopefully my first feature. I mean,
Oh,
it's all very like loose right now. I have a script and I just finished up like a pitch deck for it. Um, I'm basically just gonna try and fund it like through my own savings and like whatever I can like fund from individual people because I mean I'm a first time director. I don't have representation and it's also like kind of I mean it is actually in a very similar realm as Annihilator. Not exactly, but like there's a lot of similarities in it. It is kind of experimental in like a similar way. So I know like it's the sort of project that I'm not gonna bring it to like a production studio, you know, is
right.
basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a like crazy thing for me to think about, but I just feel like at this point in my career, it just makes the most sense to like take that plunge and just go for it, you know. And I feel like I'm ready for it, especially like after this film and just seeing how it came out. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like once I saw how this one came out, it really made me like trust my instinct with what I'm doing a lot more, you know.
I'll say that your unofficial music video for Cindy Lee, and then some of the other stuff that I've seen that you've made, I haven't watched all of your films that are available online, but the one on VHS I loved. But I'm a sucker for VHS, and um, you've got a great eye. I think that I really hope that you're able to like continue to make these great pieces. So now that you've done some shorts and you're looking at doing a feature, you've been doing this for years now. What advice would you give to someone who's about to make their first short film or feature film or any kind of film?
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
um I'll say this. I feel like and this especially applies for this project, but I've always done my best work and the work that I am the most proud of. Um when I've really actively like pushed myself past what I felt comfortable really doing. I don't think you can actually make anything that's like genuinely interesting or compelling or break new ground if you're just operating within like the bounds of what you know you can do, what you know you're comfortable with, what you know will work.
Mhm.
Uh, and at least for me, like when I feel like you need to be able to take those risks if you're going to get any sort of like meaningful payoff, you know?
Yeah.
Um, so I guess just trust your gut and go for it. And try not to be boring.
You've succeeded there. Well, we've come to the most important, our final question, the most important question of all. What is your favorite pizza topping?
Ooh. Probably either mushrooms or banana peppers.
Ah, banana peppers.
Yeah. One of
Wow.
those for
You
sure.
know, growing up, I didn't like mushrooms, and now I love mushrooms on a pizza. I'm mainly vegetarian now, so it sort of kind of does double duty. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm vegetarian too, so but I love mushrooms on
yeah,
like almost anything. So it's I don't understand why they're so controversial for so many people. I just like they're just really tasty.
yeah, yeah. Also, a film that's playing our first night of the festival is called Microdosing, and it's about mushrooms that may not be so good for you as you think. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, the go-to so far has been pepperoni. I think the more consensus is pepperoni, but it's nice to get a vegetarian point of view.
Yeah.
Um, well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your film, and thank you for submitting it. Again, I love the hell out of this movie. I cannot wait to show it to people. I can't wait for more and more and more people to see your work.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, Kyle, thank you.